You're talking about 200 to 300 appointments that you're losing per month. You're talking about upwards of $1 million per year of lost revenue, which if you look at the impact on the profitability of a dealership is immense. The opportunity is it's operationally complex and lots of money not being picked up from the ground.
Today, I'm excited to sit down with Tasso Roumeliotis, founder and CEO of Numa, a generative AI solution transforming how dealers scale customer experiences. We explore how predictive modeling is helping dealers diffuse heat cases before they scorch profitability, the fine line of when AI should step in, and just as crucially, when it shouldn't, and much more. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Trade Pending, AutoFi, and Numa. And now let's get into the show. All right, I gotta say this in the authentic Greek accent. The signature Tasso Roumeliotis on the CDG podcast. Let's go. Is that good?
No one's ever said it better. I feel like I'm on a Greek podcast right now.
Oh my God, listen. I'm so excited for this podcast, I swear to you, because our GM at the store for years was Greek from Thessaloniki. And dude, you don't understand how much into Greek culture I got. It's actually like weird. We would go to New York to like the tavernas and be up till like 5 a.m. I mean, we had Greek music playing in the store. Customers would come in to buy cars and they loved it. They're like, cause you know, it's happy, it's upbeat.
Yeah, totally.
Man, so I swear, I was like, we're gonna have to kick this. It's gonna be fun. How you doing, man?
Good, very good, very good. You know, Yossi, we like to say my big fat Greek wedding was actually not a comedy, but a documentary in Greek culture, because that stuff really happps. I think you've had some experience firsthand.
It's so good, man. I loved you guys. What a great culture and what a great country.
It's fun, yeah.
So I was talking to my wife and I was telling her, just talking like general work stuff. Believe it or not, she actually cares to listen to this. Wink, wink. No, but she asked me, hey, so like, what are you up to this week? And, over the weekend, I'm like, yeah, well, I've, a couple podcasts I'm recording this week. And I was telling her about this one. It's the first one of the week. And I swear, like, I wanted to start the podcast. But here's the thing. I don't know you that well yet, right? We're getting to know each other. But I wanted to start the podcast. But you know that video that's been circulating on social media where it's like the Kalimera, like in Greece, like the news channel. Did you see that video?
Yes.
Basically
the weather one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God. If whoever's listening has not seen this, you got to search it. It's the best thing. So I showed it to her yesterday and I'm like, what do you think? So am I starting the podcast? She's like, do it. But next time, but you get the idea. So I was like,
get the idea, yes.
You'll get a kick out of that
yes,
one.
I think what they do is they'll compare like a German weather woman giving the
forecast,
and then they jump over to the Greek one, and you see the cultural differences, even though the countries are only an hour and a half flight away.
I love it. Well, dude, great to have you on. You're in quite the interesting space nowadays in automotive. So you're definitely a lot going on. How are you?
Yeah.
We'll just start there.
Good. Yeah. Very, very exciting. We've companies growing really fast. We're very excited about the space. I think interesting space for us means that there's like a lot going on and a lot to do, and kind of very exciting time. It's a very disruptive time, and we're happy to work with our partners.
I like to think that I'm pretty on top of automotive technological changes and what's happening, but I swear the pace that we're moving right now is just astonishing. Just over last couple of days, dealers DMing me about like AI image generation. One dealer saying, hey, I want to be able to take a picture of a car and have a full video walk around of that vehicle ready, or stuff like that. Right? Dealers are literally asking about this because, it's kind of circulating on social media and stuff. So they're just, curious if I know anything specific. But it feels like the pace that our industry is moving right now, or just in general, technology is really quick. It's evolving really quickly, and it's increasingly impacting auto. And plus, there's going to be so many more ways it impacts. So I guess I want to start, before that, I want to start with you, because we're going to talk all about this. And I want to talk about your background, which is very interesting. I saw you pretty wild tech background for many years. You've done a lot in that space. So can you just tell us a little bit about your background and your history?
Yeah, well, so let's see. So I started off, I was actually, I'm the son of, you mentioned Greek, I'm the son of Greek immigrants in Montreal, Canada, by the way, which is the French part for, I think most people know that. And I grew up in a small community business. My parents kept a little shop. It was like a small 7-Eleven. And the reason that business survived was my mom, who was a real entrepreneur in the family, was the one that really made sure that, we knew every single customer. We kind of, during the holiday period, she'd have gifts for them. She'd make them little Greek cookies, like the kind of stuff that you saw in your store. She brought that level of warmth and kind of commitment to the customer. So I grew up in a small business. From the entrepreneur side, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I have an embarrassing story. I was embarrassed at the time, but my mother, like I said, we had this convenience store, and we would sell things like the 2-liter bottles of Coke, and the drugstore across the street from us, literally just walking across the street, was having a loss leader sale, and we're selling those Cokes for 10 cents each. Our cost of goods sold was about $1. So my mom grabbed her 4 kids and 5 of us. So her and the 4 kids went over, crossed the street, and the limit was 3. You can only buy 3 of these heavy lost leader Cokes. So we'd buy 15 at a time, and then an hour later she'd trek us back there. We'd buy another 15, and she did it a third time. And the third time the manager comes up and she's like, "Madame, you can't do this. It's too much. I know what you're doing. I know you're across the street." And she turns to him. She says, "Mr. Levesque, you're such a wonderful family man." And out of her bag she pulls up some Greek cookies and she gives to him. And he just sighs. He's like, "Okay." So that level of kind of what it takes to win in an environment as kind of an immigrant entrepreneur in a community business was kind of how I was wired. The family, you're running a convenience store. So convenience means you're open every single day from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. So the family had to be in the business the entire time. We wouldn't take holidays. We wouldn't take kind of days off. So that was kind of foundational for how my career happened. Then after that, I went to college. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I was a big point of pride, as you can imagine, in these kinds of communities. I actually went to college in Montreal, and coincidentally, at the time that I was at McGill University there, Justin Trudeau, we were in different programs, but was there at the same time, was a classmate of mine. And our rival school 2 hours down the road was Queen's University, and a certain guy who's got some presence in automotive named Elon Musk was there at the same time. So just purely coincident, those folks, both guys who are the same age as me, were kind of in the vicinity. And Elon is actually, his mom is Canadian. Yeah, and then after that, I kind of went to school, got an MBA. But the whole goal of it, the reason I got an MBA, the reason I invest in this is when you start off with humble means of a different culture, when you speak differently, getting those, I'll say those kind of stamps, if you will, from going to business school kind of allows you to enter a different level of kind of professionalism is what I was really going for. And then as soon as I graduated, I did what I always wanted to do, which is start a business, start a technology business. And the key thing for us at the time were mobile phones were starting to be massively penetrated in the United States. And my first company was called Location Labs. And the big thesis we had there was that the GPS on the phone was a new kind of disruptive technology, very different than what the technologies were being used on laptops at the time. We built a company around taking advantage and monetizing the GPS on the phone. And so that was the first company. Think about kind of 2005, 2006. So this GPS was actually initially resident on phones in the United States because of a government mandate. So the 911 mandate, because people were moving exclusively to cell phones, people weren't having landline phones, so the 911 calls were coming in primarily from cell phones, and you couldn't locate a person. So the government says, "I need GPS, I need location on these phones." We said, "Hey, this is an amazing business opportunity, so let's build a company around that." So this company we founded, Location Labs. We were here in Silicon Valley. We got VC financed, and we built that company where what we did, we were the first company to do person-to-person location. So we helped families locate their kids. That was the use case. So Sprint, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile launched services alongside Location Labs where it was built into these family plans where you could locate your kids, and they upsold that product from like $5 to $10, sometimes I guess 15, but it became kind of a big part of the telco's revenue generation and exploiting these kind of new technologies.
Yeah. I will tell you, this episode is brought to you by Trade Pending. If you've seen the Carvana ad for the value tracker that lets people get monthly emails tracking their car's value over time and thought to yourself, dang, I wish I had something like that for my dealership, you need to check out Trade Pending's newly launched Value Watch. The first of its kind for franchise dealership, Value Watch lets your customers and your leads subscribe to automated monthly emails and texts that track their vehicle's value over time while also promoting your service offers. Go visit Trade Pending at NADA booth 851 to see how you can keep more of your customers for life with no extra effort from your team. Again, that's Trade Pending at NADA booth 851. We'll see you there. One thing that I think ports really well to our industry and what I believe in, which is just like frugality. I think one thing in like a dealership, right? Again, we're in such a low margin business, 5% net, plus minus, some more, some less, whatever. I think the point is everything I read about you or some of the most, your kind of richest articles, we're talking about kind of your leadership and kind of cost management. I think First Round had a good article on that. It always goes back to the same roots though, right? You grew up in a family business, you understand, right, what it takes to save a buck. I love the Jeff Bezos example where, when Amazon was already funded and, had plenty of cash. I mean, even till today, I think, or to some extent, not obviously globally, but they like use desks that are made out of like, I don't know, plywood or whatever. So I just think like, seeing that, what I was going to ask you, and we'll get there, because I want to introduce what you're currently working on, but I'm super curious to know how are you focusing today with just the rapid pace of AI? let's get there properly. So I don't want to ruin the intro because this is good. All right. So I did see Location Labs. So you're a successful tech entrepreneur. What brought you to automotive? Or Numa, the whole idea for what you do today? Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to the stage?
Sure. So Numa, the big thesis, and we had done early artificial intelligence at Location Labs. We effectively like used AI to determine that the kid should be at school at the right time or at home at this time, and we'd send geofenced messages to parents. We were very early using what I'll call location-based AI. The thesis behind Numa was very simple, which is we were still early in AI. The technologies were natural language processing. There were things called chatbots, but we knew that it was going to accelerate. And we wanted to help initially small community family businesses use AI, not just to survive or keep up, but to thrive. We wanted to build competitive. That's one of the key missions. I grew up in this small community business. Our business was very important to the community. So we said, let's help these companies like become better than the chains. That was the initial thing. AI to help small of these businesses become, superior to like these kind of corporate, more bureaucratic companies. So we went out, we had like dentist offices and salons and restaurants, a whole bunch of customers that were actively using Numa. And what we discovered purely by accident was that the highest usage, I'm talking about 1 to 2 orders of magnitude more usage of Numa, were car dealerships that we hadn't even marketed to. So it turns out one of our existing small, medium customers had also owned some dealerships, got it in their dealerships, and they started telling their friends about it. So we're like, oh, okay, like this something is really off here. And then we kind of said, okay, can we talk to you guys? Because you guys are humongous users of the product. So we went in and we saw, particularly on the service department, which is where our initial focus is as a company, we saw like amazing use of the product. And we also saw a problem set. Like I like to say that the service department or dealership has the complexity of a hospital, okay? So there is so much to be done. I mean, if you think about it, right? There's diagnosis, there's making appointments and manage following up on appointments. There's a service advisor who's keeping the customer up to date. There is the technician who's kind of like a doctor or a surgeon, right? You have parts. You have warranty, which is the same as insurance. So it was such a complicated beast to handle that we said, this is amazing. And we also kind of determined that the last bastion of community businesses that give back the little league teams, that do those things, that was the core mission of Numa, that really had a future, were the dealerships. So we said, we are now a dealership company. I'm a dealership guy. Everyone in this company, you guys are all dealership people. And we completely built our go-to-market team. Everyone on our go-to-market team has worked or has like done business with dealership. And
let me ask you a quick question though. You're obviously a very smart guy and you're based in Silicon Valley, right? Where, in a sense, it feels like everything's always a couple steps ahead. When you discovered this, what gave you the conviction to say like, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and go after the dealership space? Because on one hand, right, you could have very well may have said, hey, I don't know if dealerships will be around in 10 years. Why will I invest in this space? Like, what gave you that conviction? By the way, I asked the same question to the president of Capital One, Sanjeev, before they even went into automotive financing at all. This was 10 years ago they started, maybe a little bit more. So recently I asked him the same exact question. I'm like, because they obviously placed an incredible bet. Their business has flourished. But I'm curious to ask you that now. So like, why, right? What, you've never been in this space. So why were you so confident that you can help this space, but also that it's going to be here for the long term and that you feel confident and excited about investing in the space?
I think fundamentally dealers are entrepreneurs and very adaptable. And I think they have a big core value here at Numa is they have anti-fragility. I think they will be around. EV is going to come and maybe that's going to reduce the, whatever the expenses being spent or the service business. They're going to adapt. Robo-taxis might come. They're going to adapt. So we really liked that kind of like hardcore entrepreneurial mindset to kind of continue to survive and thrive. And it was a big industry, but like literally what it came down to, I'm like, am I willing to bet on these guys? And that's really what it came down to. Like we looked at other industries. There were like other industries that also approached us, real estate, whatever. I'm like, no, this is an industry and it's going to change and we can be really helpful to them.
Okay, so now before we get into like the nitty gritty, can you just explain in a nutshell, what do you do today? What does your company even do?
So at Numa, we talk about AI native dealerships. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the foundation of that. But we, so you did a podcast which looked at the reasons that customers are upset with the Google My Business review scores and kind of, what happened there and what the biggest complaint is of customers. Number one complaint that customers have with dealerships is communication. Okay. So foundationally, Numa,
that's true.
we are built.
Yeah. Specifically staff. Yeah. Staff, which is, a majority communication is up like 20% year over year.
Yeah, totally. So what Numa does is uses AI to drastically solve the communication problem at your dealership. That doesn't just mean picking up the phone when you don't have staff to do it. That also, if you look at, for example, in the service department, why is communication so bad? Why is it so tardy to give a status update? Because the information resides in other departments and there's internal communication that's lacking. Typically, it's a very analog way. I, as a service advisor, have to walk to the shop or walk to the parts department to get the answer to my information. How can you use communication to handle the customer and also internal operations? And how are you building these AI, we call them agents, we'll talk more about that help everybody in that department, in all departments, kind of solve their problems and result in much better communications through the dealership. And that manifests itself into a customer feeling like a seamless experience. We want it to be like how you order your Uber Eats. That should be how the status update should work as well.
You mentioned that term, the AI native dealership. Can you explain that? What do you mean by that?
So let me kind of give you our perspective on kind of how we view kind of AI, because there's a lot of point solution, which is very, very natural. So we liken AI a little bit to electricity. So if you look at, the 1890s and look at a plant, a manufacturing facility, it's fascinating. If you ever Google what a line shaft is, it's similar to a drive shaft. So the way a plant was constructed at that time, you had a big, steam engine that sat at the plant, and it powered these typically two big line shafts that would run across the entire operation, the entire plant. And each of the machines was connected to this line shaft, which is typically always on, with these belts. So imagine these belts, just like you have like a belt in a car, right? Running these machines perpetually at all times. The plant also had gas lamps. That's how that was the visibility you had at a plant. Electricity comes around. Everyone's like, awesome, electricity is this exceptional technology. So you know what they did? The first thing that they did, or the actual thing that they did, these plant managers said, let's replace this big steam engine with an electric one, because it's 10 times better, more efficient, kind of low cost. And that's kind of where we're at right now with AI. So, hey, we have this AI technology is able to pick up the call. Let's book an appointment, right? So rather than saying what else can AI be used for, we are at that stage. So when you look at the companies that ended up driving the second industrial revolution, they took electricity, they built new plants, which were not architected around these line shafts. They were architected around each machine in the plant has its actual own power source. You now have better lighting, so you can have longer hours. And there's a whole innovation around new machines, which were electric powered machines like assembly lines. So now you were able to enable mass manufacturing. So the dealership is going to be re-architected. There are jobs being done right now that could be done by an AI. There are jobs being done right now that are being done because you're unable to solve a specific customer problem that you should have solved before it became a problem. That will be done by AI. You're going to see like the kind of human being and the skills that they're going to have in a dealership. We don't think we're in a world where there's no people. There's going to be lots of people, but man, they are going to have exceptional EQ, and they might get trained on that. Training is another thing that you mentioned in that podcast. They're going to probably get trained by AI because that's an efficient way to do it. So the whole dealership is going to be rethought, and it's going to take time, but that's our perspective. We're trying to go about it from a first principles perspective.
This episode is brought to you by AutoFi. Despite mass adoption of technology by dealers, the car buying process is still time consuming and inefficient. In fact, it still takes nearly 3 hours to buy a car, and the average salesperson only sells 9 new vehicles per month. But selling a car shouldn't be so hard. Whether online or in the showroom, AutoFi enables dealers to build trust and fast-track the deal to F&I. And AutoFi dealers see an average of $765 incremental back-end PVR per deal. You can check out AutoFi at NADA booth 4219. Again, that's NADA booth 4219. Lock in your appointment today at autofi.com/NADA 2025 or click the link in the show notes below. So if you're thinking from a first principle perspective, like lots of dealers have to be thinking this, because I'm thinking this, right? Because if I was a dealer right now getting pitched by many different solutions, how will you win? I want to know specifically, right? What are you doing that's different, unique? You're clearly growing quickly. You just raised a big round, which I have to imagine your revenues are growing quickly as well. Like why will you win? What are you doing today that is unique or just providing so much value? Can you just take us one level deeper there?
I'll give you one example for us from a first principles root cause analysis. One of the most important, and I think if you were to ask any dealer, they're like, yeah, that's like a problem. The big issue that you have in a dealership are heat cases. Okay, it's an angry customer and they cause carnage. We've done some preliminary math and we see dealerships that have 10% more heat cases having 50% less profitability. The heat case it's like the butterfly effect. You have an angry customer that is going to drive by your dealership every single day and never buy a car from you, never get the car service. They're going to go to a dinner party. They're going to tell 15 people about how much you suck, and then another party a week later. They're going to abuse your employees. Your employees are going to feel really awkward about their situation, about your. So it all drives this very, very, very negative approach. And then you as the general manager or as a service manager or fixed ops director have to deal with this. Okay, it's a huge pain point. And then of course, not to mention that they're going to like bash you to the OEMs and give you a 1-star review on Google. Those heat cases are extremely sensitive from a root cause. You ask the 5 whys. So our view is the following, which is, yep, you can book an appointment. Yes, that's great. But what if you can hire an AI agent that is able to identify, predict heat cases, and then also construct, using generative AI, obviously, the right answer for this customer to take them from a heat case to a neutral, or maybe even a positive. If I can hire that agent, call them Heat Case Harry for all I care, and you can solve that problem for me, you from a root cause analysis are going to drive significantly higher profitability. So our approach is we're attacking these things, okay? Let me give you another example. The average dealership takes 23 hours to get back to a customer. So 23 hours to get back to a customer, obviously when people talk about communication being an issue, well, that feels like the ultimate symptom. So why does that happen? So first of all, you have a service advisor in the service department who's trying to gather information. They have to talk to other departments to get that information. They have to keep track of which customers has gotten back to. They try and do the 10 and 2s, but then they fall behind. And then you as the manager don't have the capability to understand the wait times of each of these customers. So again, this is an AI that you can hire effectively that will help create reminders for the service advisors and make sure the customers are being kept up to date, and also give a full visibility to the managers. The manager can see who's responding, who's not, and hold people accountable. We see that I would argue that one of the most important things that our customers, folks like the Shorkey Group, for example, one of our very, very, very early customers, they love the fact that they now know how their service advisors are performing, and the service advisors are being held accountable. Holding folks accountable, especially in an environment where the service advisor is running around, has so many things. They're the busiest people in the dealership. Everyone knows that. And giving them, both the tools and then being able to hold them accountable is very important.
All right. So the next question that, as a dealer, from a dealer perspective, comes to mind is, can you explain briefly how you do this or can you tactically explain how you do this, but in a non-technical way, right? Like I'm thinking, are you going into my DMS? How are you actually able to do this and create the system?
Yeah, sure. So our system is an assembly of best of breed language models, other technologies, and then the specific data to your dealership. So yes, it is DMS, it is other systems, Scheduler, whatever other systems that we have access to data. What we're trying to do in layman's terms is learn your dealership, learn the kinds of customers. So we're learning from the people that reach out to you, how you talk to them, how they talk to you, and then we see the outcomes. We see that when this interaction happened with this customer, that ended up being an angry customer. When this happened, that customer was delighted. That was customer goal. Okay, so the system is learning from what you're doing, and that's causing a winning outcome and a losing outcome. And then from there, we're able to predict, if you will, what the right reaction is, what you guys should do based off of the situation that comes in the communication with a customer. So think of it as we're building kind of a language model for your dealership based off of, you might be in rural Georgia or you might be in New Jersey. That's a very different kind of a dealership interaction, and we learn those nuances and are building a model for you to be able to run your dealership based off of the language and communication. That's kind of our goal. That's AI native means that we're going to take everything that you're doing, particularly on the communication and your specific data that you have at your dealership, and build something for you that helps you run, that helps you hold people accountable, where you can hire agents that solve these problems.
All right, so I do have a different type of question. Why did you gravitate to service? Typically, when I would say more companies that have entered the AI space in auto retail have first gone to sales. It's also, variable operations. It's everyone can see it, touch it. It's much more accessible. Service, again, there are definitely players in the space in service, but I would say it's secondary typically. Why did you start with service in this case?
So there's a few things. First of all, service accounts for almost 50% of the profitability of a dealership. That is, I would say kind of first and foremost. I mentioned earlier that the complexity of running the service department is like a dealership. And
yeah, I just want to touch on that point you just made. Like the way I perceive that is like the most amount of dollars being lost is going to be in service because it's the most profitable department, period.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you actually look at the statistics, the average dealership is losing upwards of 250 to 300. We have a report that we published on this based off of actual data with our existing dealership partners. You're talking about 200 to 300 appointments that you're losing per month. You're talking about upwards of $1 million per year of lost revenue, which if you look at the impact on the profitability of a dealership is immense. The opportunity is it's operationally complex and lots of money not being picked up from the ground.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't even need to look at your report. I think we all know that service, you can call many times and your call doesn't get picked up. Like that's just a reality. It's happened to all of us. It's just a reality of how it is. And it's not out of bad intention, God forbid. It's just like, it's humans and that's just, it happens. And so I would agree with you there.
That's right. And here, like operationally, what you see is 50% of the appointment requests come in the first couple hours of the day. How's a BDC staffed?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have like people that are working 8 hours, right? But the reality is
it ebbs and flows in a big way.
It ebbs and flows. Yeah. So the peak load is an issue. So that is an area where technology can help out a dealership very, very, even if just those first couple hours, so important to be able to handle all those calls.
And then what's the customer experience like? I know you're really helping, right? You're not in the business of like replacing, you're in the business of improving the staff and providing them more tools. And I think that makes sense. It's the right strategy because I think that it's simply much more practical and it's very effective and it gives the dealer an edge, right? But what's the actual customer experience like?
For end users who actually call into a dealership or interacting with the dealership. So so our approach is people are calling in and they're calling in or reaching out to the dealership for different reasons. Some folks might have a question or need a status update. Others want to make appointments. Others may have like a technical question because something happened, for a repair that was done a few weeks ago. So the experience needs to be amazing for everybody, obviously. And we are bringing the customer to where they need, where it's best for them to kind of service what they're looking for. So if you are calling, for example, I'll give you a specific example that our technology does. So if you called and left a voicemail, call back again and hang up, right? That's very different from somebody who called and went through an appointment scheduling texting interaction. That customer actually, our AI is like, that person needs to talk to somebody.
So it recognizes that.
Oh yes. So think about the first agent is trying to determine who is calling and why they're calling and how to best handle them. So if somebody calls and hangs up, leaves a voicemail, hangs up again, let's say, our system lights this up, moves it to the top priority of whoever is assigned to this customer, gives them kind of context, and even recommends something that for you to reach out to this customer. We think this is what they might be calling for. Wow. So think about that for a second. So AI is helping the human being provide the right kind of experience to a customer. Like if you think about some customers are calling the dealership because they want to talk to somebody and yell at somebody. If you put an AI in front of them, you're exacerbating the problem, right? So we think this is an angry customer because they haven't gotten a status update. We recommend that you give them your deepest apologies. Oh, Mr. Levy, I'm so sorry that we haven't gotten back to you. I have 3 calls into your service advisor. I'm going to walk in and see if they're at their desk right now. That's a very different experience using AI agents to help determine that, to generate something like that for you. So that is kind of what we're trying to drive towards. Look, the human being is like when they're calling you, they're trying to get something done. And if there's times where they need to speak to somebody, that's why they're calling. And you need to make sure that they're speaking to somebody, not an AI.
This episode is brought to you by my very own car dealership guide job board. Hiring top talent in the automotive industry just got easier. My CDG job board connects employers in the auto space with top tier talent and it's completely free. Employers benefit from my network and candidates gain access to great opportunities. This platform works for everyone in automotive, dealers, vendors, lenders, manufacturers, auto tech, and beyond. And over 200 companies have already taken advantage, including Lithia Motors, CarNow, Veros Credit, Numa, Cars Commerce, and 50 other dealer groups. Don't hesitate. Add your open roles today at dealershipguide.com by clicking on job board in the navigation bar or use the link in the show notes below. Again, visit dealershipguide.com and click on job board in the navigation bar. CDG Job Board, connecting the industry's best companies with the best talent. I'll see you there. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the future because you're working very close and you're at the forefront of the technological changes here in our industry. But I'm curious, what are you seeing? Like, what's next, right? Do you see any big opportunities that are on the horizon for dealers with respect to service, dealership technology, the two of them?
Yeah, so there's some really amazing progress that's happened. So I'm going to pull it into kind of autonomous vehicles and it's particularly Tesla's FSD. So over the years, we've all seen that it's gotten better, but we're talking about a very linear. It's gotten better at about 10% every year.
You're referring to Tesla's like full
full self-driving FSD. So I think
this is going to be spicy. I'm excited for this one.
Well, so if you think about it, what Elon Musk has effectively invested the market capitalization of Mazda in an AI supercluster to now take all his data and apply all his data into these AI chips. And what we've seen this year, which Musk and a bunch of hedge funds have commented on, we started this year at a Tesla FSD, I think it was 12.1, doing about 50 miles of driving per critical incident. This MPCI is the metric of safety for a car. So 50 miles MPCI per critical incident. Okay. With the technology, the investment that he's made, that's gone up in the version 13 to 50,000, it's a 1,000x increase. So we went from a very linear world where we were increasing at 10% a year to now 1,000% in 1 year. So if you're really at 50,000 miles per critical incident and the supercluster that he's built, which is going to continue to thrive, they think they're going to go 5 to 10 times by Q2, Q3 of next year. So at that point, you're doing upwards of 600,000 miles driven per critical incident, per critical disengagement. The average human gets into a critical accident once every 533,000 miles. Every 533,000 miles. So you're talking about next year, these Tesla Model 3s, of which there's lots of them on the road, are going to be perhaps even safer. I think a lot of people are like, well, we'll see that when it happens. But with the technology, with the AI chips available, you're now able to see some of these things. The other thing I'll say, which is a very important thing for us in the industry to note, is that the new administration, the Trump administration, has stated that autonomous driving policy is going to be a federal one. So it's not like the mayor of San Francisco can have their own policy and the governor of Texas can have their own. It is going to be a national policy. Obviously, the autonomous vehicle manufacturers are going to be very big fans of this. It's the right thing for the country as well. Combine those two disruptive events, you're looking probably 2026 as a world where we're going to start having these robotaxi entrepreneurs. I think for service departments, particularly, that's an amazing opportunity. You're going to have people that are going to buy 6, 7 of these cars. First of all, you're going to have OEMs that are going to say, oh my God, what am I going to do? And you as a dealer can say, I gotcha, right? Because that's one of the things that we love our dealer partners is they're creative and entrepreneurial and they have no problem skating to where the puck is. And so the service department, you're like, okay, we have all these cars, they're going to need maintenance. Like the person that's running their little robotaxi business, right? They're not going to park their 6 cars in their garage. They need somewhere to park them. These cars need to be cleaned all the time. They need power. They need all this functionality. Other than the dealership, who's going to finance these? These are entrepreneurs that lack capital. So all the metrics that you run your business on, you're going to be able to both finance, sell, and then offer as a service to these entrepreneurs. So it's something to be careful of, I think.
Well, I think it's a big opportunity. And I mean, it's totally realistic. Anyone who's tested out Tesla's full self-driving will tell you, right? The thing works. It works pretty well.
13
obviously
is pretty
it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I think the more important part here is the fact that you just made, which is that the goal is to make these, or to allow entrepreneurs to have fleets of these things. And to your point, they're going to need to get service somewhere. They're going to need to be parked somewhere. And so that could be a big tailwind for service centers as the demand for them will rise.
100%.
That's a great point. I love it. All right, Tasso, before we wrap up, I'm curious to know, just kind of digesting all this, has there been any reluctance from dealers? Listening to this, like I said, it comes in many forms, the AI, and they're all very different. It seems like what you're doing is pretty sophisticated and behind the scenes. I was impressed by the point you made earlier about how it really knows, by kind of follow-up quantity and stuff like that. But I'm just curious, what's it been like adoption in our industry? I always like to get these, I like to keep my kind of fingers close to the pulse and understand how are dealers reacting to this?
Yeah, I mean, there are dealers obviously that want to try the latest and greatest and, on the edge, on the technology, the innovators. It's very interesting. We have definitely had customers that either chose not to work with an AI because they were afraid to use it and they didn't want to use it. Now, when you actually ask, why don't you want to use it? And people that push back on it. It really comes down to the fact, and it's actually a very rational point. Our dealers are like, look, we don't make the BMWs, we don't make the Toyotas, right? We're in the customer service business. We're a customer service and operations company that happens to sell and service BMWs, right? That's what we are. That's our core business. If I'm going to hand over customer interactions to a robot that I didn't build or design,
such a good point.
It's
a core competency.
It's my core competency, man. So I need you to I need to pressure test it. That is a very fair thing for a dealer to say. Okay, very fair. So our view is like, yeah, you should use AI to help you run your business better. Understand if you're actually doing better, if you're providing better customer service to you. So get the metrics. Understand, make sure, like we talked about, holding your advisors accountable, so responding quickly to customers. So, and what we've seen is people are like, yeah, that I'll get, because that is not customer facing yet. That is internal facing for my operation. So I'm using AI to help my operation run better versus ramming it down my customer's throat and having them go into some AI doom loop where when I hang up, I just wasted 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes of my time as a customer, and I'm really, really pissed at you. So when we actually asked the root cause question, it wasn't that they hated technology, it's that they didn't want some robot that they didn't design and build themselves, like talking to a customer.
You don't want to lose control. Give me just one thing to keep us excited here about all this change and innovation that's coming to our industry. Leave us with one nugget to be excited, so that when you come back on the pod over this next year, we have some new surprises.
Yeah, so I think you should expect these AI agents to be doing really cool, interesting things that you didn't actually think you needed to do, and there's going to be a swarm of them. And I think you're going to have new employees at your dealership. They're just going to happen to be AI agents, and you're going to task them to do things.
I love it. Numa.com. By the way, how'd you get that domain? It's a great one.
My partner, Joel Grossman. No, he actually negotiated for over. I think in the car dealership world, we really appreciate his negotiating skills. It took him a year to do it, and we got it for a fantastic price. So
you got a good domain. I love it. You're fully integrated. I'm just scrolling through your website. You're fully integrated. CDK, Tekion, DealerTrack. It's great. You're doing a great job. So we'll put the link in the show notes below as well. Tasso, thanks for coming on.
Yossi, my pleasure. Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for tuning in. Before you run, Numa will also be at NADA in New Orleans in a few weeks. Tasso and Numa will be at booth 7012. I hope to see you all there. All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.